On day 61, I counted what I had left. 14 ration bricks, 3 with frost damage on the corners, 2 functional heating coils, 1 suit with a cracked chest seal I'd patched with equipment bay sealant, and a strip of hull lining. Ammunition enough for another week of perimeter discouragement, which was the technical term I had started using in my own head, because it felt more accurate than defense. The Vreth weren't trying to breach the garrison. They were waiting for it to stop mattering. The other 4 garrisons had stopped mattering. I knew that. The Consolidation had transmitted the casualty confirmations directly to my comms panel, formatted like administrative notices, which I thought said something about them even if I wasn't sure what. Garrison 1 went dark on day 9. Garrison 3 held until day 31, which I had respected privately. By day 40, the Vreth fleet in low orbit had gone from 7 vessels to 4, presumably rotating elements back to resupply, which meant they had fully transitioned from active siege to passive attrition. Passive attrition on Keth-Vorus assumed that Keth-Vorus would do most of the work. It was a reasonable assumption. Class 16 designation and storm season. Surface temperature averaging -61 standard at the garrison's coordinates, and dropping another 8 degrees per 100 meters of elevation. The ice shelf under the garrison had been assessed at 83 meters thick when the original installation survey was run. I had no reason to believe it was thinner now. What I did know was that the storm that had been moving across the western quadrant since day 54 had finally made it to my coordinates. And the wind off the shelf face was reading 112 kilometers per hour on the exterior sensor that still functioned. I logged all of this. I had been keeping the maintenance log current because it gave the day a shape. The Vreth opened a channel on day 63. I was replacing the heating coil in the secondary duct when the comm panel lit. I finished the replacement before I answered, because the duct temperature had dropped 4 degrees over the previous 2 days. And I wanted it resolved. Then I keyed the channel. The officer on the other end was mottled gray, skin moving in slow pulses around the collar. The Vreth did something with chromatophores when they were working through a problem, and this one was working. The translation module rendered its voice as flat and precise, which I had found was typical of Consolidation command grades. It said that the Vreth Consolidation recognized my garrison's continued operation and wished to offer terms consistent with honorable cessation of resistance. It said the terms included safe passage off Keth-Vorus, full cessation of orbital pressure, and return of personal effects. I said I didn't have many personal effects. There was a pause that lasted longer than signal delay could account for. Then it said that the offer stood regardless. I said I appreciated that and closed the channel. I want to be careful about how I describe what I was doing, because I've told this account 3 times now to 3 different debrief officers, and each time one of them asks if I was attempting to provoke the Vreth or if I had formulated some tactical objective around continued resistance. The answer is that I had not. What I had was a garrison that was still structurally sound, a heating system that still functioned with maintenance, and no mechanism in my thinking for what accepting set terms would actually feel like. It wasn't stubbornness in any way I could identify from the inside. It was more that cessation required me to decide the garrison had become something other than a garrison, and I hadn't made that decision, and the Vreth asking me to hadn't changed the available information. They opened the channel again on day 66. A different officer this time, higher collar rank, chromatophores cycling faster. It said the Consolidation had reviewed my situation and wished to make clear that relief from Garrison Command was not coming. It transmitted confirmation codes. Real ones, I checked them, showing that the Union had classified Keth-Vorus as a lost system and reallocated the relief tonnage to the Sereth front. I said I was aware of the strategic picture. It said then that I understood my position was without strategic value. I said I was a garrison soldier on a garrison. I said the garrison was still here. Chromatophores stopped cycling for a moment. Just stopped. I noted that in the maintenance log, because it seemed like the kind of thing worth courting. On day 68, I started working on the anchor array. The deep ice anchors were a structural system. 12 pylons driven 80, meters into the shelf to keep the garrison from migrating during the thermal cycles that Keth-Vorus ran every 42 standard days. They weren't a weapon system. They weren't designed to be. What they were was a network of dense mass pilings connected by a resonance lattice that was supposed to dampen vibration, and I had a lot of time and a functional engineering terminal and a problem that needed a different shape. By day 72, I had the array running a modified pulse sequence. What it did, at the resonance frequency I had calculated, propagate a standing wave through the top 40 meters of ice shelf across a 400-meter radius centered on the garrison. The surface looked the same. It wasn't. Any mass above a certain threshold, meaning any Vreth landing vehicle, trigger a fracture cascade that would take it through the shelf in under a minute. The Vreth had good sensors. They would figure it out eventually. But figuring it out meant putting a probe down first to confirm. Putting a probe down first meant losing a probe. And the Vreth Consolidation was an organization that logged equipment losses in the same administrative format as casualty confirmations, which told me something about how long they would want to keep losing probes before they escalated. Different approach. They opened the channel again on day 74. The first officer, the one who'd made the original offer. It looked, if I was reading the Vreth correctly, tired. The chromatophores were slower. It said, the consolidation had reviewed the surface modification to the garrison's anchor array and wished to register that this escalation was noted. I said that the anchor array was a structural system, and I had performed maintenance on it within my garrison engineering authorization. It said the consolidation did not accept that characterization. I said that was noted. It said, and here it paused again, the long kind. It said that it had reviewed the records of all 5 garrisons on Keth-Vorus, and that it did not have a model that explained my continued operation. It said the other garrisons had been staffed by trained soldiers with equivalent equipment and equivalent conditions. It said the variance was not in the equipment. I didn't say anything for a moment. Then I said that I didn't have a model for it either. I said I had a heating duct to check. I closed the channel. The relief ship came on day 81, not Union. A Sereth independent runner that had apparently decided the Vreth fleet thinning to 3 vessels made the approach viable. The pilot who came down in the shuttle was a compact Sereth woman who looked at the garrison, then at the storm, then at me, and said she had been told there was 1 survivor. I said the garrison was still operational. She looked at the maintenance log I handed her. Current through that morning, and said that was an interesting way to phrase it. The Vreth did not contest the pickup. I don't know why. Maybe the probe losses. Maybe the model problem. The 3 vessels held position until we cleared the atmosphere, and then they moved off, and I watched Keth-Vorus get small in the runner's aft camera until the storm cover closed over it and there was nothing to see. I filed the final garrison log from orbit, marked status as suspended pending reactivation, and went to find somewhere to sit. That wasn't a maintenance panel. The shelf is still there. The anchor array is still running the pulse sequence. I left it on.